Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. I walked into my own kitchen and froze mid-step. My name is Lily. I was 32 that spring. Jenna stood at our counter wearing my husband's t-shirt and nothing else obvious. Her bare feet crossed at the ankles like she had settled in. She laughed at something behind me, and my stomach went tight. Nate flipped a pancake at the stove like this was routine. He glanced over my shoulder and smiled slow, way too calm. Our son sat at the table banging a spoon, cartoons murmuring from the living room. Jenna reached for the syrup, his shirt riding up just enough to show skin. I set my bag down harder than I meant, and everyone jumped. Morning, I managed that much, my voice coming out flatter than I hoped. Jenna twisted toward me with this bright grin like she rented the place. "We crashed your breakfast," she joked while tugging at the hem like she just noticed the shirt. I stared at the logo on her chest and knew it was his. My husband does not lend those shirts easily, and definitely not to neighbors. "Why are you wearing that?" came out sharper than I intended. Nate slid a pancake onto a plate and kept his eyes on the pan. "She spilled coffee on herself," he said, still not looking at me. "And the kids wanted to play, so I told them to come over early." His voice sounded normal, but his shoulders stayed tight, like he was waiting for a verdict. Jenna waved a fork in the air like this was a sitcom. "Sorry, I totally ruined your perfect little morning routine." She popped a bite into her mouth and talked around it, comfortable enough to chew through my schedule. I checked the time on my watch and felt my window closing. I had a meeting in 40 minutes across town and no patience for surprises. Nate stays home with our son while I work full-time. Usually when I rush through the kitchen, he is alone with cereal and chaos. That morning he had backup, and the backup wore his shirt. It hit me how easily she had stepped into my space and my job. Not the paycheck part yet, the rest of it. I poured coffee into my travel mug and listened to them behind me. Jenna teased him about burning the edges, and he nudged her with his hip. The movement was quick, like muscle memory, like something they had done before. Our son laughed at them instead of at the screen, and I felt weirdly sidelined. In my own kitchen, I had become the extra person, the one passing through. When I moved closer to grab my keys, I caught a whiff of his deodorant on her. She should have smelled like coffee or her own house, not him. My fingers froze on the key hook, and I had to force them to move. "You could have called me," I muttered, because the words "take that off" felt insane. He finally looked at me then, eyes wide for half a second before the easy smile came back. "It was last minute," he said. "I did not want to bother you at work. You are already overloaded. I can handle a surprise playdate." He dropped his voice on the word overloaded like it was proof he cared. Which is wild, because now I know exactly how much he handled that day. Back then I let the guilt land, because that was easier than the suspicion. On my way out I noticed the sink, 2 mugs already rinsed and turned upside down. They did not match the plates on the table, which meant someone had been here earlier. I pictured them standing here alone before I woke up, sharing that first quiet cup. The thought hit me fast enough that I nearly turned back, nearly asked who knocked first. Instead, I grabbed my bag and walked to the car, feeling like I had missed the start of something important. Her minivan blocked half our driveway when I turned the wheel. My first thought was that I got the date wrong for something. My second thought was worse, that she no longer needed dates. I pulled in tight beside it and felt my jaw lock. The front door stood open a few inches, our son's sneakers in the entry. I heard laughter inside, not mine, not just the kids. For a second I stayed on the porch with my hand on the knob. Walking into my own house suddenly felt like stepping into someone else's. I pushed the door and stepped in hard enough that it bumped the wall. Our boy sprinted across the living room, nearly tackled my legs. Behind him, Jenna sat cross-legged on the floor sorting puzzle pieces. Nate lounged on the couch, phone in hand, feet up like it was Sunday. "You are home early," he straightened, the phone dropping to his side. Traffic was light. I slipped my bag onto a chair and watched them. Jenna lifted her head with that bright, quick smile I was starting to hate. "We did a movie morning," she announced like she ran a small camp here. There was a blanket draped over the back of the couch, not ours. A travel cup on the table matched the kind she carried from home. She had started importing pieces of her life into mine, tiny and steady. "Hope you don't mind," she added, already turning back to the puzzle. It was my day to have the kids. Nate jumped in, rubbing our boys' hair. "We figured keeping them together makes it easier for everyone." Everyone sounded suspiciously like it did not include me. I smiled just enough to keep the room from cracking. "Nice that you two figured that out while I was gone." The words came sharper than I planned, and I did not fix them. He shifted on the couch, shoulders tight for a second before he relaxed again. "It just kind of happened," he muttered, like that was supposed to calm me. "Here is the thing about those arrangements, they rarely just happen. They grow in small decisions, in shrugged texts, in quiet mornings. You do not notice the pattern until you are standing outside it." I already felt like I was peeking through the window of my own life. By the next week, her van was a daily fixture near our mailbox. Sometimes it was there before I left, sometimes it appeared by lunch. They built this routine where one would do drop off, the other pick up. I watched the schedule form over my head like a weather report. We had a group chat, originally for simple kid logistics. Slowly, the feed became a long thread between them with my name on top. I would glance during breaks and see 10 messages stacked and settled. Half the time they already solved whatever I wanted to bring up. One afternoon I unlocked my phone and scrolled through the thread. "Swing by here, I already started snacks," that was from her. "Perfect, I can finish the laundry while they play," that was from him. No one had asked if that laundry plan included my clothes. That evening I walked in and heard the dryer humming in the hallway. Music played quietly from a speaker I did not remember setting up. Jenna stood near the couch, folding a neat stack on the coffee table. On top of the pile sat one of my bras, folded like a dish towel. My chest burned so fast I needed air before words. Our son bounced nearby, dragging a toy truck through the carpet. Nate carried another basket from the hallway, arms full, eyes focused. He almost missed my expression until he followed my line of sight. "Oh hey," Jenna chirped like she had just wiped a counter. I threw in a load while the kids watched a show. She lifted another pair of my underwear and smoothed it with her thumbs. It felt like a slap disguised as a chore. I stepped closer and took the piece from her hands without smiling. "You do not have to handle our laundry." My voice came out low, not loud, which actually scared me more. "This is kind of personal, in case that was not obvious." Her cheeks flushed, but not much, not enough for my taste. "I was already washing hours," she answered, tucking hair behind her ear. It just made sense to toss everything together, one big family load. That phrase sat in the air like something heavy and sticky. Nate cleared his throat and set the basket down a little too quick. "She was just helping," he added, fingers tapping his leg in short bursts. "Look how much it saves you after work." His eyes searched my face, hunting for appreciation, dodging the actual issue. "Sure," I replied, stacking my things into a separate small pile. "Next time maybe ask before you start sorting my underwear." I did not yell, which somehow made his shoulders sag even more. He watched me gather the clothes like I was packing a bag. After she left that night, I cornered him in the kitchen. "Where does this stop?" I asked, my hands gripping the counter. "She is here nonstop now, she does housework, she makes schedules." It came out like a list of charges, which, honestly, it was. He leaned against the fridge, palms up like he wanted a truce. "The kids are calmer together," he answered, eyes steady but tired. "She gets lonely at home, I get overwhelmed sometimes, this works." Every sentence had a good reason that ignored how I felt. "So we just live in this little co-parenting bubble now." I laughed once, short and ugly, because the word fit too well. Did anyone want my opinion before merging households? His face twisted at that, and I knew I had hit the real nerve. "You are not here during the day," he replied, sharper than usual. "You do not see how it actually goes, you only walk into the end." That line cut deep because it was partly true and he knew it. Sometimes the worst part of a fight is when the hit is accurate. I went upstairs later and noticed something new in the bathroom. A second toothbrush sat in a cup beside his razor, pale and small. I stared at it until my sight blurred, counting heartbeats. It could have been a spare, but I already knew whose it was. The next morning I woke earlier than usual and stayed quiet. From the bedroom window I watched their street, pretending not to. Right on time, her minivan rolled up across from our yard. Our front door opened before she knocked, like this was a shared house. They chatted on the porch, calm and practiced, kids shuffling between them. Our boy held her daughter's H. It and tugged her across our lawn. He did not look back to see if I watched from the window. That hurt more than I expected, which I stored away for later. A few days after that, we hosted a last-minute cookout. It was his idea, using the new routine as an excuse. Everyone is already together, he pointed out, texting her before I answered. By the time I agreed, she had already offered sides and drinks. Her husband arrived with them, dragging a cooler, talking about work. He barely glanced at the yard before checking his phone again. Jenna drifted toward our patio like she was stepping onto a familiar stage. She slipped in close to Nate, bumping his arm, laughing at some quiet joke. They moved in an easy rhythm, passing plates, refilling glasses, dodging children. From a distance, it looked like a well-matched pair hosting guests. I watched them from the steps, a weird third wheel in my own gathering. When her husband asked where the bathroom was, he looked at her instead of me. Later, as the sun dropped, the kids chased each other near the fence. Jenna leaned on the railing beside him, watching them with soft eyes. "You are incredible with them," she told him, voice low but clear enough. "If I had someone like you home all day, I would never worry." I pretended to check my phone, but every word hit anyway. He laughed under his breath, rubbing the back of his neck like a teenager. "It is not that big a deal," he replied, though his shoulders lifted a little. That tiny glow on his face scared me more than any argument. Our son ran up then and grabbed her hand with sticky fingers. "Can we sleep at your house tonight?" he begged, bouncing in place. Her daughter chimed in right away, chanting yes like it was tradition. I waited to see how the adults would handle that little test. Her eyes flicked to mine just for a heartbeat, then back to him. "Maybe soon," she answered, squeezing his hand, letting the promise hang. Nate chuckled and reached out, resting his hand on her shoulder. "Slow down, buddy," he told our boy, but there was no actual no in the air. That night in bed, I stared at the ceiling and replayed the day. Every touch, every shared task, every quick glance I was not supposed to catch. It was not about one shirt or one chore anymore, that part was done. The shape of something bigger had started forming, and I felt it closing in. The new lock screen showed up on his phone overnight. I only noticed because his alarm would not shut off. I reached across the bed to grab it and hit the button. Instead of the usual swipe, there was a code keypad staring back. My thumb hovered there way too long for something that simple. "When did you lock your phone?" My voice sounded wide awake fast. He rolled toward me, hair sticking up, eyes still half closed. "Oh, that our son keeps opening apps and buying junk." He stretched, took it from my hand, typed the code without looking. Watching his fingers move that fast did something ugly in my chest. I wanted to say all right and drop it, I really did. Instead, I sat there listening to the water start in the bathroom. The phone lit up again on the nightstand while he brushed his teeth. A message preview flashed across the top, and one name hit my stomach. Jenna, followed by a heart next to her contact photo. I did not open it, I just watched the screen glow. 3 more bubbles stacked on top of each other, quick little bursts. Then the sound cut off and the next text popped through silently. He had turned on Do Not Disturb for everything except her. That detail stuck to me all morning like a burr under fabric. From then on, his phone basically lived in his pocket. He used to leave it on the counter, screen up, no big deal. Now it stayed face down or tucked under a folded dish towel. Every buzz made his hand twitch before he pretended he had not heard. He always checked it the second I turned away from the room. At night, the glow followed us into bed like a third presence. I would be scrolling emails and feel the mattress shake beside me. He angled his body away, shoulders hunched, fingers moving fast near the edge. Sometimes he smirked at whatever he read, a tiny private smile facing the wall. Memes, he would mumble if I glanced over, like that covered everything. One evening I tried to be casual and nearly choked on it. "You and Jenna text a lot, right?" I rinsed a plate under the faucet. "Mostly kid stuff, nap times, pickups, nothing thrilling." He grabbed a towel, drying his hands like the topic bored him already. If anything, it helps us keep things straight for you. There it was again, that little jab wrapped as a favor. Every time I pushed back, he reminded me I worked long hours. I knew I did. I was not stupid. I also knew I was not crazy. Still, the doubt crept in, making everything harder to trust. That mix is dangerous because you start arguing with yourself instead of them. The stupid part is how normal the discovery moment actually looked. Our son stood in the doorway one Saturday, whining about a game crash. The tablet keeps freezing, it is broken, fix it. We had not used that old thing in months, it lived in a drawer. I grabbed it, held the button down, waited for it to wake up. The home screen blinked on with all our dusty icons still there. A notification banner slid across the top before I could open the game. Messages, his account, one thread pinned right at the top. Jenna's contact picture filled the corner like a tiny smug sticker. Underneath it, the most recent line froze me in place. She blew up again about the schedule, I do not know how to reach her. My own stomach lurched at that because I knew who she meant. My thumb hovered over the banner, every part of me yelling something different. Looking felt wrong, not looking felt worse. I opened the thread anyway. That was the moment I stopped giving him the benefit of the doubt. The conversation stretched back weeks, maybe longer, endless blue and gray bubbles. I scrolled just a little, telling myself I would only skim. Wish you were here right now, the kids are feral, that was hers. You got this, you always do, breathe, that was his with a winking emoji. It read like a pep talk, but every line leaned closer than it should. Further down, the tone shifted, small complaints tucked between parenting updates. He just shrugs when I talk about anything serious, I feel invisible, her words. I get it, I know exactly what that feels like, his reply. He was not talking about her husband in that one, and we both know it. Seeing my own failures spelled out with his support made my vision blur. Then there was the part that actually made my knees weaken. You are the only one who really sees me day to day, from her. You keep me sane, you have no idea how much I need that, from him. Nothing sexual, nothing explicit, just raw intimacy dressed as emotional first aid. Honestly, that kind of closeness felt more dangerous than anything physical. A new bubble appeared while I still had the tablet in my hands. She is home now, gotta pretend I am not glued to this thing, from him. I stared at the words so long the screen dimmed on its own. Our son tugged my sleeve, demanding the game, no idea the floor just shifted. I locked the tablet, handed it over, and heard my pulse in my ears. For the rest of the day, I moved on autopilot through the house. Every time he chuckled at his phone, I pictured those lines. Every time Jenna's name lit his screen, I wondered which version of me they discussed. I almost blurted it out at lunch, right there between bites. Instead, I swallowed it and tasted metal all afternoon. That night, I finally cornered him when the dishes were done. Are you talking to her about us? I leaned back against the counter. He paused just a fraction, then lifted one shoulder like it was nothing. Sometimes we vent, it is stressful, we both juggle a lot. My hands clenched so hard behind me my nails dug into my palm. Vent is one thing, I answered, hearing my voice shake slightly. Calling her the only one who understands you is another. His head snapped up, eyes sharp now, game over on the casual tone. You went through my messages, his jaw tightened, hurt flashing across his face. He looked more offended by the snooping than by what I had read. On the tablet it popped up, I did not go hunting. I kept my words slow, careful, because I knew he would twist any opening. Of course it synced, he muttered, rubbing his forehead, breathing hard through his nose. We were just talking, two tired parents relating, that is all. He never used the word emotional, but the air between us felt soaked with it. We live in the same house, and you unload on her. The volume rose on that line before I could stop it. You joke about pretending around me, you tell her, I explode. I could hear myself starting to sound unhinged, and I hated it. He stared at the floor like he had already checked out of the fight. You do not talk to me without a calendar open anymore. That one landed heavy because there was a grain of truth buried inside. You come home late, you are exhausted, she is here when stuff hits. He spread his hands, almost pleading, like the whole thing was inevitable. It felt like listening to someone explain why gravity existed in our marriage. I went to bed early that night but did not sleep. The phone buzzed once on his side and went silent fast. In the dark, I watched his shoulders curve toward the nightstand for a second. He probably thought I could not see that tiny tilt, that tiny reach. Those little movements are the ones that haunt you later. The next morning, I checked the tablet again while our son watched cartoons. The thread still sat at the top, but the last few lines were gone. He had deleted part of the conversation after our argument, trimmed the edges. Newer messages, Lou. Ked cleaner, more formal, like a script. I stared at that sudden politeness and knew it was completely fake. Jenna knocked at the door that afternoon with a bag of snacks. Our boy flew past me to let her in, yelling her name. She stepped into the hallway with that easy smile, like nothing had shifted. "We survived another morning," she joked, bumping my shoulder on her way inside. I watched the way her eyes flicked toward the kitchen where his phone usually sat. "Busy messaging today," I tossed it out light, testing the line. Her gaze snapped back to me just for a breath, then softened again. "Group chat keeps us sane," she replied, pulling a silly face for the kids. "We would all drown in reminders without it, right?" My laugh sounded wrong even to my own ears, and she noticed. For the first time, I saw a sliver of caution in her expression. Like she realized I might not be as clueless as they counted on. She reached out and squeezed my arm, holding a beat too long. "You know you can talk to me too, anytime, about anything." That offer felt less like support and more like a quiet challenge. Later that week, I caught him in the hallway with the door half closed. His voice dropped low, phone pressed tight, back turned to the room. "I cannot stay on long, she is upstairs," floated out before he noticed me. He spun, nearly dropping the phone, cheeks flushed, eyes too wide. "Wrong number," he muttered, slipping past me, avoiding every piece of furniture. I did not believe him, obviously, but I also did not argue there. I just watched his shoulders as he walked away, tense and hunched. There is a point where you stop trying to be heard and start collecting proof. I had reached that point without quite admitting it out loud. Which is why, a few days later, I went hunting for the old baby monitor. I pressed the camera mount into the wall with shaking fingers. The little lens stared back at me from above the bookshelf. If he walked in right then, there was no good explanation ready. I still plugged the cable in and watched the monitor light up. That click felt like crossing a line I could not uncross. The receiver hummed in my hands on the couch. Static, then a blurry shot of our living room snapped into focus. Toy bin in the corner, couch in full view, our front door in frame. The mic picked up the faint buzz of traffic outside and my own breathing. I sat there listening to my heartbeat while empty space filled the screen. "Congratulations, you are spying on your own house," I muttered. I actually laughed under my breath because it sounded insane even to me. Then I pictured that chat on the tablet and the hallway whisper. Every time I doubted myself, one of those memories hit hard. Paranoid or not, I climbed the chair and tilted the camera slightly lower. I set the receiver on my nightstand and checked the range. From the kitchen, the image still came through, grainy but clear enough. From the driveway, the audio started to crackle, but shape stayed visible. That was good, I needed it to work while I was gone. I slid the receiver into my work bag like contraband and zipped it up. On the drive, the guilt chewed at me the entire way. Normal couples talked, they did not install surveillance on each other. Then again, normal neighbors did not fold my underwear and share heart emojis. I kept swinging between shame and fury so fast my head hurt. When that happens, you start choosing action just to stop the spinning. At my desk, I plugged the receiver into the outlet under my feet. I angled the screen inside my tote where only I could see. For a while, nothing moved on that tiny square picture. Just the couch, the toy bin, the same empty doorway. My stomach knotted so hard over nothing that I wanted to pull the plug. Around mid-morning, our son darted through the frame chasing something. Nate followed behind him carrying a bowl, wiping his hands on a towel. He looked exhausted, hair messy, sweat at his temples, just daily chaos. Watching that made me soften despite myself, which annoyed me even more. Then he disappeared out of frame and the sound dropped to kid chatter. I watched on and off for an hour, then forced myself to stop. If I stared all day, I would lose my job on top of my mind. I turned the tote so the screen faced away and pushed through emails. Every 20 minutes though, my foot nudged the bag to check the glow. That tiny green light started to matter more than my entire inbox. The first day was nothing but kid noise and background cartoons. He vacuumed, he picked up blocks, he paced on phone calls. No Jenna, no weird lingering touches, no secret movie marathon. By the time I drove home, I almost felt embarrassed about the camera. Almost not enough to take it down, but enough to call myself dramatic. When I walked in that afternoon, they were all in the backyard. He waved with a casual grin through the sliding glass. For a second I thought maybe I really overreacted this time. Later in the shower, I tried to wash the suspicion off my skin. It stuck tighter than soap, which told me this was not over. Day 2, I set the receiver on my desk right after logging in. No hesitation, no debate, just straight to the outlet and volume knob. I positioned a notebook in front like a little shield from passing eyes. The image flickered, then settled on our couch, sunlight across the cushions. My fingers trembled enough on the pen that I had to set it down. Our kid popped into view mid-morning, dragging a blanket, jumping off the arm. Nate walked by with a snack plate, pausing to ruffle his hair. He wore a t-shirt and shorts, moving around with easy muscle memory. He looked like the reliable parent everyone praises on social media. Watching him through a hidden camera made that image feel like a marketing ad. Late morning the door opened and Jenna's ponytail appeared in frame. My stomach dropped before her whole body even stepped inside. She did not knock, she just nudged the door with her hip and slipped through. A grocery bag hung from her wrist, probably some joint snack plan. I leaned closer to the receiver until my nose almost hit the plastic. "Look who brought reinforcements," her voice rang out, cheerful and light. Our son yelled her name and barreled into her legs for a hug. Her free hand reached down, pulling him close, fingers stroking his hair. Nate stepped into view, taking the bag from her, their arms brushing. He did not back away quickly, he let that contact linger like a habit. They moved into the living room, talking over each other with inside jokes. He dropped onto the couch at one end, she folded herself near the other. Not touching, not yet, but the distance between them was thin. She tucked her feet beneath her and angled her body toward him. It looked comfortable, too comfortable for people who supposedly kept boundaries. I turned the volume up a notch and held my breath. "Texted me that thing about sleep training," she was saying. "I swear you should write a handbook for surviving toddlers." He laughed low and pleased, like the compliment landed deep. "If I wrote anything, you would be the only one to read it." That one hit me harder than it should have, because I recognized the pattern. That was his play in college, sharing private jokes to keep girls hooked. Hearing it now in our living room made my chest feel tight and hot. I dug my nails into my palm under the desk to stop shaking. Those old stories had become my present, not some distant youthful phase. After lunch, the picture showed only toys scattered and an empty couch. They had moved out of frame, probably to the kitchen or hallway. Part of me wanted to reposition the camera through the screen somehow. When the image stayed clear and vacant, I imagined shadows everywhere else. That unseen space started to feel more dangerous than what I did see. By late afternoon, my focus at work was wrecked. I closed the monitor, shoved it deep in the bag, forced myself to function. Numbers blurred on my screen while my brain replayed every snippet. It is wild how 5 seconds of contact can replace entire years of trust. I knew if I went home and confronted them, they would call me unhinged. Day 3, I pretended I might not use the monitor. I left it in the kitchen drawer when I headed for my keys. Then our son dropped his cereal on the floor and started crying. Nate rushed to clean up while texting someone with his other hand. The phone buzzed, he smiled at the screen, and that decided it. I grabbed the receiver, shoved it into my bag and walked out. No more wavering, I wanted the truth in full color. At my desk, I set up the little screen in the drawer this time. I cracked the drawer just enough so the picture shone through. Watching like that felt sneakier, which somehow made it easier. For the first hour, same routine, nothing new. Breakfast mess, kid chaos, cartoon noise, him pacing between rooms. My shoulders relaxed a fraction, and then the front door moved again. Jenna slipped in wearing gym clothes, hair damp, cheeks flushed from a workout. She tossed her keys on the table like this was her second address. Already a circus in here, she laughed, stepping around a pile of blocks. He met her halfway, towel over his shoulder, grin bright and wide. You are just on time for the main act, he joked, spreading his arms. She moved into them for a hug that did not feel neighborly anymore. His hands landed at her waist and stayed there a beat too long. My stomach flipped so hard I had to grab the desk. Every noise in the office faded behind that tiny grainy image. They broke apart slowly, faces close, eyes still locked for a second. Then our son barreled into the scene, wrapping himself around both their legs. They each dropped a hand, turning it into some twisted group embrace. They settled on the couch, kids on the floor. Front of them. Right away, I noticed the way their knees brushed and did not separate. She leaned in to show him something on her phone, their heads almost touching. He laughed quietly, shoulders shaking, then covered her hand with his. She did not pull away, she turned her palm to lace their fingers together. I could hear them through bursts of cartoon music and kid chatter. Sometimes I imagine just walking out and never looking back. That was her voice, soft but clear, slipping between animated dialogue. You know you would always have somewhere to land, his reply came low. That promise sat there in the air of my office like smoke. My vision burned and I blinked hard, refusing to miss anything. The kids carried toys to the hallway and disappeared from view. Suddenly, it was just the two of them on that couch in my house. She exhaled and sank deeper into the cushions, turning fully toward him. He lifted his arm and she slid under it like they had done it 100 times. He pulled her close until her head rested against his shoulder. His fingers traced slow little lines along her upper arm. That tenderness hurt more than if he had ripped her clothes off. Sex can be a stupid mistake, this was something else entirely. I watched my marriage wrap itself around another woman in real time. She went quiet for a minute, then started talking again. If I stay over there forever, I am going to disappear. Her hand moved to his chest, almost absent-minded, drawing circles. I come here and suddenly, I remember who I am supposed to be. Supposed to be, like my life was some trial she had been rehearsing. You do not disappear, he murmured, thumb brushing her shoulder. You light this place up, the kids adore you. He cut himself off and swallowed, jaw flexing, eyes on the TV glow. You make all of this bearable, he finished, which somehow felt worse. He was not just grateful, he was building a world with her in it. Our son shouted from the hallway, and they jolted apart slightly. She stayed leaned against him, but moved her hand back to her lap. Our house never feels like this, she confessed, voice thick. There I am the problem, here I feel like I belong. Every word was a brick laid in a home that was not hers. Then she said the line that still makes my pulse spike. I do not want to keep going back there. She tilted her head to look at him, eyes shiny, mouth set. I want to stay here with you, with them, this feels right. I clamped my hand over my mouth in the office so I would not scream. He did not jump up, he did not correct her, he did not laugh. He just looked at her like he had already pictured that future. His hand found hers again and squeezed, slow and deliberate. Careful, he warned, though his eyes were warm, not warning at all. If you say things like that, I might actually believe you. The room around me spun even though my chair did not move. Colleagues walked behind me with coffee and papers, normal lives intact. Inside my bag, my world was cracking apart on a 3-inch screen. I stared so hard my eyes ached, memorizing every gesture. Later, I would replay that scene more times than I care to admit. Eventually the kids stormed back in, demanding snacks and attention. Jenna straightened up, wiping at her face quickly with both hands. He stood and stretched, ruffling our son's hair as if nothing had happened. From the outside, it probably looked like any afternoon playdate. I had just watched the audition for my replacement, and nobody even clapped. I yanked the plug from the outlet under my desk and shoved everything away. For a minute I just sat there, palms flat, breathing like I had run. I knew one thing very clearly, more than anything else. Whatever story they were telling themselves about this, I was done playing gullible. The next time I walked through my own front door, I would not pretend anymore. I walked through the front door and locked it behind me. The sound was louder than usual, a hard snap in the quiet. Cartoons hummed from the living room, and I could hear giggles. My heart pounded so fast I felt it in my throat. This time I was not walking in blind. Our son spotted me first and sprinted over with a yell. He wrapped himself around my legs and I hugged him tight. Over his shoulder I saw Nate on the couch, remote in hand. For a second he smiled like any normal afternoon. Then he caught my face and the smile vanished. "Hey, you are early," his fingers toyed with the remote. Yeah, I loosened our kid's arms and brushed his hair back. "Buddy, can you take your toys upstairs, build a huge tower?" He loved that idea and bolted toward the stairs at full speed. I waited until his door closed and the house felt too still. I stepped in front of the TV and hit the power button. The screen went black, our reflections hovering there like strangers. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, watching me carefully. "What is G?" Owing on, his voice tried to stay light. I almost felt sorry for him, almost. "I know about the couch," I kept my hands at my sides. "About the afternoons when I am not here, the way you hold her." His head jerked back like I had slapped him. For a second his mouth opened and nothing came out. That pause told me everything before he said a word. He recovered fast, of course he did, he has practice. "What are you talking about?" He forced a short laugh that died quick. "You are at work, you do not see anything." I pulled the baby monitor receiver from my bag and set it down. The little screen flashed up our living room in real time. He stared at it, then at me, then at the bookshelf. I watched him replay his week in his head and land on the camera. "You spied on us," he pushed up to his feet, eyes wide. "You planted a camera in our house, are you serious?" He was loud now, like outrage could erase what I saw. "Do not turn this on me," my voice came out low but steady. "I watched you wrap your arm around her and invite a future. I heard her say she wanted to live here, with you, with our kid. I heard you tell her to be careful or you might believe her." Saying the lines out loud made my skin crawl. He dragged a hand over his face and paced in a tight circle. "Nothing happened," he insisted, chest rising fast, eyes everywhere. "It was just talking, we were venting, we were joking." I tilted my head and waited, giving him enough rope. He dropped his gaze first, which felt like another confession. "Did you kiss her?" The question hung between us like a knife. His shoulders slumped and he let out a rough breath. "Once," he muttered, then corrected himself almost instantly. "Twice, maybe." It was brief, we stopped, it did not go further. That little word maybe burned more than any graphic detail. I stepped closer until we were a few feet apart. "You held her on our couch and talked about staying. You promised her she always had a place here. You told her I was impossible to reach while you clung to her. You do not get to hide behind just talking." He flinched at the word cling like it scraped him. "I was lonely," he snapped, hands balling into fists at his sides. "I am here all day, every day, with a toddler and errands. You come home exhausted and already halfway checked back out." She was here, she listened, she cared. There it was, the sad little justification speech. I felt my throat tighten because part of it was not wrong. I had been gone a lot and yes, I had been distant. That still did not make what they built anything but a betrayal. You can understand the reasons and still refuse the result. So you filled the gap with a neighborhood crush and secret hugs. I folded my arms, not for comfort, more like armor. You did not talk to me, you turned to her and shut me out. You let her imagine moving in here like I was already a ghost. You let our son think she is some bonus parent. His expression twisted at the mention of our boy. "He loves her kids," he argued, sounding smaller now. "They keep him busy, he is happy, why wreck that?" "Because she is not just watching cartoons with him," I shot back. "She was trying on my life while you watched." For a moment we just glared at each other across the rug. I could feel old love under all that anger, which hurt more. If I felt nothing, this would have been easier, quick even. But I still saw the man who used to call me first. That made every inch of this mess feel like my ribs were cracking. "I am done sharing you," I finally said, voice shaking now. "You want to be the stay-at-home hero, fine, we chose that. But you do not get a backup partner built into the deal. This house does not come with a second wife. So here is what is happening next." He straightened a little, like he finally understood a line was coming. "You are moving into the guest room tonight," I told him. Not as a punishment, as a boundary, as a pause. We will find a counselor and schedule an appointment this week. Until then, every conversation stays on the surface unless we are in therapy. He stared at me like he did not recognize the person in front of him. You are kicking me out of our room over a few messages. I actually laughed, short and sharp, no humor in it. This is not about texts, I answered, shaking my head slowly. This is about you letting another woman imagine living in my home. His jaw clenched, then he nodded once, almost mechanical. I do not want to lose this, he whispered, voice breaking for real. I messed up, I know that, I thought I could handle it. It felt good to be needed again, to be the strong one. I never meant for it to get that far. Intent does not erase impact, I replied, surprising myself with how firm that sounded. Maybe this started as support, I am willing to believe that. It morphed into something else, and you went along with it. You did not shut it down when it crossed the line. Yo. You let her fantasize about staying while you kept me in the dark. His eyes filled and he turned away, wiping at them quickly. Seeing him cry did not make me soften this time, not much. Grief sat in my chest right beside rage and, weirdly, relief. At least now everything ugly was in the open, no more guessing. Secrets eat you alive, even when you are not the one hiding them. I am also going to talk to her, I added, and his head snapped back. Absolutely not, he blurted, stepping toward me, panic bright in his features. She will spin it, she will twist your words, she will blow everything up. Her husband will freak out, the kids will get dragged into it. We can handle this between us, we do not need to start a war. You already started one, I reminded him, pointing toward the monitor. She is going to hear directly from me, not through your filter. I am not threatening her, I am establishing rules for my life. If she wants to fix her marriage, that is her problem. If she keeps circling mine, I will loop him in myself. He opened his mouth, then shut it again, shoulders dropping. You are serious, he finally said, sounding almost stunned. I nodded once and picked up my work bag with shaking hands. I will handle bedtime tonight, I added, heading toward the stairs. You can start moving your stuff before you cook dinner. That night I lay in our bed alone for the first time. I listened to drawers open and close down the hall. Our son kicked in his sleep through the thin wall between rooms. Every sound felt like a reminder of how fragile this setup was. I stared at the ceiling and wondered when exactly we lost the plot. The next afternoon, I walked across the street with my heart hammering. Jenna's minivan sat in the driveway, front windows cracked slightly. I rang the doorbell and waited, hands locked together to keep them steady. She opened the door with her usual bright expression, then froze at my face. Hey, she said slowly, one hand tightening on the frame. We need to talk, I answered, stepping just inside the threshold. Without kids, without excuses, without you pretending this is about snacks. She swallowed and glanced over her shoulder toward the hallway. My husband is in the basement, he is on a call. Perfect, I said, even though my stomach felt like it flipped. We moved into the front room and she crossed her arms. There was no sugary tone now, just a guarded, tight smile. If this is about the group chat, I already backed off there. I do not want drama, I really do not. Too late, I replied and watched that land on her face. I watched you on my couch this week, I started, not easing in. I saw you tucked under his arm, talking about never going home. I listened to you say you wanted to stick around my house. You told him this felt like the family you were meant to have. You looked very comfortable trying my life on for size. Her chin lifted, eyes narrowing, but she did not deny it. You were spying on us, she snapped, echoing his earlier outrage. You realize how unhinged that sounds, setting up a camera. You cannot control every interaction he has, he is not your property. Maybe if you were present more, he would not need someone else to listen. That one cut, I will not lie, because the truth stung. I took a breath and let the shame wash over me, then pass. You are right about one thing, I agreed, and her brows shot up. I have been gone and he has been lonely and overwhelmed. That still does not make it your job to climb into my marriage. She scoffed and walked a few steps away, arms clamped tighter. You think I planned this, she threw back, voice getting louder. I was drowning over here, he was drowning over there, we talked. The kids clicked, schedules aligned, it just evolved, that is all. There was that phrase again, the one they loved, like things just happened. Talking is one thing, I answered, tracking her pacing. Kissing him is another, resting under his arm is another. Telling him you want to wake up in my house is another. There is a difference between support and auditioning for my role. You crossed that line and I watched you do it. For the first time, her face crumpled a little at the edges. I did not mean to hurt you, she whispered, looking away. It felt easy there, I felt seen, I felt valued. At home I am just the person who cleans and gets criticized. I forgot there was an actual person holding the other side of this. You forgot because it was convenient, I replied quietly but not gently. You liked that he was home, that he cooked, that he was available. You liked that he understood naps and tantrums and texted you constantly. You decided that made him yours in a way that overwrote me. I am here to remind you that no, it does not. She blinked fast, then squared her shoulders again, defensive back up. So what now? She asked, voice flat, arms uncrossing slightly. You want me to never speak to him, never wave across the street. You want to pretend we were never friends, that our kids are strangers. Because that is not realistic and you know it. Here is what I want, I said, counting on my fingers. No more private chats, no more late-night heart emojis, no more secrets. No more walking into my place without knocking, no more laundry, no more hugs. If you need to talk about heavy stuff, find a therapist. If you ignore this, I will tell your husband everything I saw. Her head snapped up at that last line, eyes wide and scared. You would blow up 2 homes over some cuddling, she hissed. This could wreck the kids, wreck everything we built together. You would really do that instead of just tightening your grip on him. You might lose him too, you realize that, right? I already lost something, I said, and my voice cracked for once. I lost trust, I lost safety in my own living room. If protecting that means scorched earth, I will still pick it. I am not going to sit here and watch you circle my family. You want to stay married, do it from your side of the street. We stared at each other for a long few seconds in that doorway. Finally she exhaled, shoulders sagging like air hissing out of a balloon. Fine, she muttered, looking suddenly older and very tired. I will keep things polite, pickups, drop-offs, nothing else. If he reaches out, I will shut it down and you can check. Good, I answered, turning toward the hall. And if you change your mind and want to fix your own mess. I actually hope you do, for your kids if not for you. But you will not be doing it by leaning on my husband anymore. That door is closed, at least from my side. That night the guest room light stayed on late under the door. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop scrolling therapist lists. Every site blurred together until I forced myself to pick one. I sent an email with shaking hands asking about couple sessions. It felt like filling out an intake form for a broken limb. Our first appointment was awkward and raw and weirdly calm. We sat on a couch that smelled like nothing, across from a stranger. I laid out the camera, the messages, the couch, the almost future. He admitted to the kisses, the fantasies, the thrill of being admired. The therapist did not flinch, which helped and also irritated me. She asked what we wanted, and the silence stretched between us. I want honesty, I said first, surprising myself with how fast it came. I want to stop feeling like a visitor in my own house. I need him to understand this was not harmless, not tiny, not cute. I also want to know if there is anything left to salvage. He rubbed his palms on his jeans, staring at the floor. I want to stay, he murmured, then spoke louder. I want this home, this family, this routine, but without secrets. I do not want her, not the way it looks, not anymore. I got carried away with feeling important, and I am ashamed. Even now, recalling that, I feel 2 things at once. Part of me believes him because I watched real guilt in his eyes. Another part trusts action more than any apology he could craft. So far he moved rooms, blocked Jenna on everything, handed me his passwords. Those steps matter, but they do not magically rebuild anything. As of today, he still sleeps down the hall with the door cracked. He still packs lunches and handles school forms during the day. I still go to work and still fight the urge to check cameras. We go to therapy once a week and answer questions we avoided for years. Some nights we talk after our son sleeps and it almost feels safe. Jenna keeps her distance like we agreed, at least on the surface. Her van still rolls by, but she drops her kids and leaves fast. Our boy asks why she does not stay to hang out anymore. We keep it simple and tell him schedules changed, people get busy. Later alone, I sit on the couch and feel the ghost of her weight. I wish I could say I know exactly how this ends. That we either patch things up or sign papers and walk away. Right now I live in the part where both doors are cracked open. The stay-at-home dad I married is trying to earn his place back. I am the one who has to decide who actually gets to stay.